The night of October 31st was colder than usual in the small town of Hollow Creek. A thin fog rolled across the cracked sidewalks, swallowing streetlights and stretching ghost-like fingers over the empty roads. Jack-o'-lanterns flickered on porches, their carved smiles trembling in the wind. On the corner of Maple and Hollow Street stood an old, abandoned house, the kind that children crossed the street to avoid. Its windows were boarded shut, and ivy crawled up its walls like veins feeding a dying heart. Locals called it the Hollow House. No one had lived there in 50 years, not since the Garrison family vanished without a trace. But tonight, 5 friends stood before it, flashlights in hand, laughter masking the unease in their eyes. "Come on," Ryan grinned, nudging Emma's shoulder. "A little Halloween adventure never killed anyone." Emma pulled her jacket tighter. "That's not true. People have died here." Chloe rolled her eyes, twirling a strand of pink hair around her finger. "Urban legends. Every town has one. Ghosts, curses, whatever. It's just an old house." "Then prove it," Noah said, his smirk daring. "One night, inside. Whoever chickens out first buys drinks for the rest of the week." The group laughed, though their voices trembled in the mist. Max, the quietest of them, didn't speak. He kept his gaze on the dark silhouette of the house, its front door hanging slightly open, creaking with the wind. "Fine," Emma said finally. "One night. But when the sun comes up, we're out." "Deal." "Deal," they echoed. They pushed through the gate, its rusted hinges screaming. The front porch groaned beneath their steps. Somewhere inside, a floorboard cracked, or perhaps something moved. Ryan raised his flashlight, shining it through the open doorway. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, forcing a grin, "welcome to our Halloween nightmare." They entered. The air inside was colder, unnaturally so. Dust swirled in the light beams like falling ash. The wallpaper had peeled into shapes that almost looked like faces. "Creepy," Chloe muttered, stepping over a broken chair. "Smells like mold and death. Perfect atmosphere." Noah laughed. They moved room by room, exploring. In the parlor, they found a grand piano coated in dust. Max brushed his fingers across the keys, and a single note rang out, though his hand hadn't pressed hard enough. Everyone froze. "Whined," Ryan said quickly. "Just the wind." But there was no wine. In the dining room, the long table was still set for dinner. 5 cracked plates, 5 glasses, all covered in cobwebs. A candle sat melted into a puddle of wax, as if it had burned for years without being snuffed. "Why does it look like someone just left?" Emma whispered. No one answered. Then, from upstairs, came a sound, a slow, deliberate creak, as if footsteps crossed the floor above them. Ryan lifted his flashlight toward the staircase. "Probably a raccoon," he muttered, though his voice shook. Noah smirked. "Or maybe the ghost of old Mr. Garrison, coming to say hi." "Not funny," Emma snapped, but curiosity pulled them upward. The staircase moaned beneath their weight. At the top, a hallway stretched into darkness, lined with portraits whose eyes seemed to follow them. Max stopped suddenly. "Did anyone close the front door?" They turned. The door at the end of the hall, the one leading back to the street, was now shut. "I thought it was open," Chloe whispered. "It was," Emma said. Silence fell. Only the faint ticking of an unseen clock echoed through the house. Then, from one of the rooms ahead, came a whisper, faint, drawn out, unmistakable. Welcome home. Chloe screamed. Ryan spun his flashlight toward the sound, but the beam flickered and died. In the brief darkness, they all heard it again, a dragging noise, like something crawling across the floor. "Everyone stay together," Noah said, voice tight. "It's probably just a door slammed shut at the end of the hall, hard enough to shake the walls." They ran. When they reached the foyer, the front door was open again, swinging gently in the wind. But this time, on the floor by the threshold, was something new. 5 dusty handprints, pressed into the wood. 5. Exactly their number. Emma stared at them, her heart hammering. "It's like it was waiting for us." Outside, the wind howled through the trees, carrying the sound of laughter, distant, echoing. Wrong. And from the upstairs window, a shadow moved. The clock struck midnight. Though no one had seen a clock inside the house, the 5 friends huddled in the front hall, flashlights trembling in their hands. The laughter that had followed them inside was gone, swallowed by a silence so heavy it felt alive. Ryan tried to break the tension. "All right," he said, voice aloud, "we've officially survived the first 10 minutes. Congratulations." "Something slammed that door," Emma muttered. "You all heard it. Old houses shift," Noah said, though his hand wouldn't stop shaking. "Wind, rotting wood, physics, not ghosts." But as he spoke, a low whisper brushed past his ear. Faint, like a breath. "Liar. He froze. "What?" Ryan asked. Noah looked around, eyes wide. "Nothing, just thought I heard something." Emma pointed toward the living room. "Let's stick together. We'll light a fire, make camp. The faster this night ends, the better." They entered the living room. A massive fireplace dominated the far wall, its bricks blackened with age. The air reeked of smoke and damp ash, as if the fire had been put out only hours ago. Ryan struck a match and held it to an old log. The flame caught immediately, too quickly. A rush of warmth filled the room, and for a moment, they all breathed easier. But then Emma noticed something strange. Carved into the bricks above the mantel were symbols, spirals, circles, and a shape that looked disturbingly like an eye. "Witchcraft," Chloe murmured. Max stepped closer. "Or something older." The fire flickered violently. A sound, soft, rhythmic, began to echo from the walls. Tap, 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 like someone knocking. From inside, "Tell me that's not rats," Chloe whispered. Ryan walked toward the far wall and pressed his ear against the faded wallpaper. His face went pale. "It's voices." Emma joined him. The whispers were faint, but real. Multiple tones, overlapping, too distorted to understand. Sometimes they sounded like crying, sometimes like laughter. Then, clear as day, a voice whispered Emma's name. Her flashlight slipped from her hand and clattered to the floor. "Who said that?" "Emma, relax," Noah said. "You're just hearing." "Emma." The second whisper came from right behind her. She spun around. Nothing. The air grew colder. The fire hissed, flames bending away from the hearth. In the reflection of the glass cabinet nearby, Emma saw something standing beside her. Tall, dark, and motionless. She turned, and it was gone. "Let's get out of here," Chloe said, her voice breaking. "This isn't funny anymore." But when they looked toward the hallway, a figure stood there. It was faint, like a shadow stretched too thin, the outline of a man, half seen through smoke, his head tilted slightly, as if curious. Then, with a crackling sound, the lights flickered, and the figure vanished. The whispers rose to a chorus, filling every corner of the house. "Run," Max said softly. "Everyone, run." They sprinted toward the front door. But when Ryan grabbed the handle, it wouldn't budge. He pulled harder. Locked. It stuck. He shouted, "Move." Noah threw his shoulder against it. Nothing. It was as if the door had become part of the wall. Behind them, the whispering stopped all at once. The silence that followed was worse. Then, a soft thud from upstairs. Followed by another, and another. Something was coming down the stairs. Slowly, heavily. Ryan raised his flashlight toward the staircase and saw a single muddy footprint on the top step, then another. "One step lower." Max whispered. "There's no mud outside." The fire went out. Darkness swallowed the room. For a moment, there was only the sound of breathing, too much breathing, as if there were more than 5 people in the room. Then, a faint voice came from above. "Why did you come back?" The friends stood frozen, every heartbeat echoing through the walls, and as the final whisper slithered through the darkness, "The house remembers." The last flashlight went out. When the lights returned, only one flashlight still worked, Ryan's. Its flickering beam cut through the dust and smoke like a weak pulse. The others gathered close, breathing hard, their faces pale in the trembling light. "Everyone okay?" Ryan whispered. Chloe nodded, but her lips were quivering. Mac looked toward the stairs, where the footprints had vanished as suddenly as they appeared. What the hell was that? Noah forced a shaky laugh. Probably some kind of trick of the light. Or mold fumes making us hallucinate. Right, Emma said. And the voice? The whisper that knew my name. No one answered. The air had changed, heavier now, filled with a faint, metallic scent. Emma wrinkled her nose. Do you smell that? Like iron? Or blood? The group followed the smell into a narrow hallway behind the kitchen. It led them to a stairwell that descended into blackness. A sign, half fallen from the wall, read cellar. I'm not going down there, Chloe said immediately. Ryan pointed his flashlight downward. We don't have a choice. Maybe there's a back door, or a way to open the front from below. Emma hesitated. The stairway looked like the throat of the house, swallowing what little light remained. Still, something inside her urged her to go. As if the house itself wanted them there, they descended. Each step groaned under their weight, the air grown colder and damper the deeper they went. Cobwebs brushed their faces. Something skittered across Noah's shoe when they reached the bottom. The beam of Ryan's flashlight revealed rows of old shelves, jars filled with cloudy liquid, tools rusted and twisted by time. The smell of decay was stronger here. Max coughed, covering his nose. This place feels wrong. They moved slowly, scanning the walls. Then Emma saw it, a door at the far end of the cellar, covered in thick iron chains. Symbols were carved into the wood, the same spirals and eyes they had seen near the fireplace. And from behind it came a sound. Tap. 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 Like fingernails scratching from the other side. Chloe gasped. Tell me that's not an animal. Could be, Noah said, though he didn't believe it. Emma approached the door, drawn to it despite every instinct screaming no. The closer she got, the louder the tapping became. Then it stopped, replaced by a slow, deliberate knock. 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 Her breath caught. Who's there? She whispered before realizing how stupid that question sounded. A pause. Then, a faint voice, so low it was barely human. Let me out. Chloe backed away, shaking her head. Nope. No, we are not. Ryan cut her off. We need to see what's inside. Are you insane? Emma said. We don't even know what. If someone's trapped, we can't just leave them. He argued, already grabbing a rusted crowbar from a nearby shelf. Max stepped forward. Ryan, wait. But Ryan was already at the door, prying at one of the locks. The metal screamed as it gave way. Then the door breathed. They all froze. A wave of cold air rushed through the room, carrying with it a stench of rot and something older, something dead, but still aware. Emma's voice trembled. Ryan, stop. The chains rattled violently. Dust rained from the ceiling. Something slammed against the other side. Hard enough to bend the metal rings? Ryan, move. Noah shouted, pulling him back just as a piece of the wood splintered. Through the crack, a pale hand reached out. Long, wrong. Its fingers jointed in too many places. Emma screamed. Ryan dropped the crowbar. The hand twitched once, and retreated. Then silence. The chain stilled. The door no longer moved. Only the faint sound of breathing remained, not theirs, but something deep behind the wood, waiting. Chloe was crying now, her flashlight shaking. Let's go back upstairs, please. They turned to leave, but the stairs were gone, where the staircase had been. There was now only a solid wall of bricks, rough and wet, as if it had never been open. The cellar had changed. Emma spun around in panic. It's sealing us in. From behind the chain door came a soft whisper, the same voice as before, but closer now, almost inside the room. You open the first lock. The candle near the wall flared on its own, light spilling across a nearby shelf. There, scratched into the wood, were fresh words that hadn't been there moments ago. 3 locks, 3 souls. The flame went out. And in the darkness, something began to drag its way across the floor. The darkness pressed in like water, heavy and suffocating. The air in the cellar was so still that every heartbeat sounded too loud. Emma gripped Ryan's sleeve, whispering, the stairs. They were right there. Ryan ran his hand along the wall where the staircase had been. Cold brick. Solid. No seams. No dust disturbed, as if the steps had never existed. "That's impossible," he muttered. Chloe's voice trembled. "It's not impossible. It's the house. It's moving." Noah lifted the flickering flashlight. "We'll find another way out. There's always another door." But even as he said it, he didn't sound convinced. They started down a narrow corridor between two rows of shelves, the beam of light jumping with every step. The air grew colder. Somewhere above them, faint footsteps echoed, slow, steady, deliberate. Someone, or something, was walking directly overhead. Chloe clutched Emma's arm. "What if it's Max?" Emma looked around. "Wait, where is Max?" The group froze. He wasn't behind them anymore. Ryan spun the flashlight in every direction. "Max, where are you?" His voice bounced off the stone walls, but there was no answer. Only the slow, rhythmic drip of water. Noah cursed under his breath. He was just here. Then, a faint flicker of light appeared at the far end of the cellar, another flashlight. It swayed slightly, moving deeper into the dark. "Max," Ryan shouted, starting toward it. Emma grabbed his arm. "Wait, that's not." But it was too late. He broke free and chased after the light. The others followed, the beam of their own flashlight bouncing wildly. The cellar twisted as they ran. Turns that shouldn't exist, walls closing in. The space didn't feel like a basement anymore. It felt like a maze. Finally, the flickering light stopped in front of a heavy wooden door. Ryan pushed it open. Inside was a small room, lit by a single, dying bulb that swung from the ceiling. Beneath it stood Max, or at least, something that looked like him. He was facing the wall, motionless. "Max," Ryan whispered. The figure didn't move. Emma stepped closer, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. "Max, it's us." Then, Max spoke, but his voice was wrong, flat, echoing. "You shouldn't have opened it." Ryan's flashlight flickered violently, and for a brief second, they saw his reflection in the bulb's glass, his eyes completely black. Emma screamed. The lights went out. In the pitch darkness, something slammed against the walls. A whisper rippled through the room. "You freed it. Now it needs more." Ryan swung the flashlight around wildly until it flickered back to life. Max was gone. Only his flashlight remained, lying on the floor, still on, casting a pale beam across the wall. Drawn by morbid curiosity, Emma lifted it. There, scrawled across the cracked plaster, looked like dried blood, were words that made her stomach twist. "One lock broken, one soul taken." Chloe backed away, trembling. "It's taking us, one by one. Then we find a way out before it takes another," Noah said firmly, though fear cracked his voice. They pushed deeper through the cellar, finding another narrow stairway leading upward. The air grew warmer, thick with the smell of burning wood. When they reached the top, they realized they were no longer beneath the house at all. They were in a hallway, long, endless, lined with doors. Every light flickered above them, humming like an old generator about to die. "Where are we?" Emma whispered. Ryan didn't answer. He was staring at one of the doors, half open, a soft orange light spilling from within. From the other side came a low hum, a voice, singing something faint, almost like a lullaby. Chloe's eyes widened. "That's Max. I swear that's his voice." Ryan took a slow step forward. "Max?" The humming stopped. Then, from the room, came a whisper that didn't belong to any of them. "Come closer." The lights above them flickered once, twice, and then burst all at once, plunging everything into darkness. Something cold brushed past Emma's neck, and in the black silence that followed, the voice spoke again, this time right beside her ear, to Locke's left. The old journal lay on the dusty table, its leather cover cracked and brittle. The candlelight flickered, casting distorted shadows across the room as Emily carefully opened the book. The first page was written in neat cursive, dated October 31st, 1897. "Tonight, I seal the pact. May their souls remain bound until the mirror is fed again." The group exchanged uneasy looks. Josh tried to laugh, but his voice trembled. "It's just a story, some Halloween ritual thing." Yet no one spoke after that. The silence pressed against them like the walls themselves were listening. As Emily flipped through the pages, The entries grew darker. The man who wrote them, a preacher named Abel Crowhurst, had performed something he called the reflection rite. Each entry chronicled a sacrifice, a villager, a stranger, even his own wife. Her name appeared again and again in the margins, followed by drawings of a tall mirror surrounded by symbols like open eyes and coiled serpents. Then came a chilling note. On the 13th reflection, the mirror will hunger again. There was a sound, faint, like glass cracking. Everyone froze. The mirror at the end of the hall shimmered, though no one had touched it. "Did you see that?" whispered Ryan, his face pale. Emily swallowed hard. "Maybe it's condensation." But her reflection didn't move when she did. Panic set in. They rushed to leave, but the door they entered through was now bricked up, as if the house itself had sealed them in. The candle flickered violently. Something in the mirror began to shift, shadows taking form, moving closer. Their outlines almost human. The last entry in the journal bled through the page in dark ink. To escape, one must offer what they cherish most. The candle went out. A whisper rose from the mirror, their own voices calling from within. And in that breathless darkness, Emily realized the reflection wasn't showing them anymore. It was showing what they would become. The candle light was weak, barely illuminating the edges of the room. Emily held the journal tightly, her knuckles white, while Ryan and Chloe circled the mirror like predators unsure of their prey. The glass was unnaturally dark, as if absorbing all light, and a subtle ripple moved across its surface. "Do we break it?" Chloe whispered, her voice shaking. Ryan nodded. "We don't have a choice. It's the only way to stop it." Max, who had been silent since the cellar, stepped closer. His reflection in the mirror didn't match him. The face in the glass was older, eyes hollow and black, grinning in a way that wasn't his. Emily pointed at him. "It's taking him. Look at Max." Before they could react, the reflection's grin twisted wider, and the glass seemed to pulse, as if it had a heartbeat. A cold wind gusted from the mirror, extinguishing the candle and throwing the room into darkness. "Max!" Ryan screamed, lunging toward him, but Max's body stiffened. His eyes went blank. A hand shot from the mirror and grabbed him. He let out a strangled scream, but it was swallowed instantly by a wet, hollow sound, like air being forced through water. Then he vanished, dragged into the glass, leaving only a ripple where he had stood. Emily stumbled back, horror freezing her in place. Chloe's flashlight flickered, revealing the mirror now covered in a web of cracks, each one filled with tiny, screaming faces that twisted and shifted. "We have to destroy it," Emily yelled. Ryan swung a heavy metal candlestick. The strike connected with a loud clang, but the glass flexed like liquid instead of shattering. The reflection rippled violently, sending a shockwave of icy air through the room. It wasn't just resisting, it was alive. Chloe screamed as something cold wrapped around her ankle. She struggled, but invisible fingers seemed to pull at her, whispering her name over and over. Emily grabbed the journal and shouted, "We need to do the ritual. That's the only way." Ryan shook his head. "We don't know the ritual. The book isn't complete." But Emily, eyes wide, realized something. A passage they had missed earlier glowed faintly on the page. Only by offering that which is most precious can the reflection be appeased. One will enter willingly, the others must survive the night. Chloe gasped, pointing at Emily. "It wants you." The mirror pulsed again, and a shadowy hand reached toward Emily. Her heart raced. She had a choice: to escape and let Max, and perhaps others, be consumed, or to step forward into the mirror herself, sacrificing everything to save the rest. Emily's hand trembled as she reached toward the glass. The faces inside the cracks contorted in silent screams, whispering, pleading, laughing. The mirror's hunger grew, and the cold air thickened, freezing their breath. Time slowed as Emily's fingers brushed the surface, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Then, the mirror rippled violently. Max's voice echoed from inside. "Emily, hurry." With a trembling inhale, Emily stepped forward. The mirror swallowed her in darkness, leaving Ryan and Chloe standing alone in the silent room. The cracks glowed briefly, then dimmed. A single candle reignited by itself, casting light across the empty floor. No trace of Emily, no trace of Max, only the faint shimmer of the mirror, now calm. For the moment, Chloe fell to her knees. She did it. Ryan turned to look at the mirror. In the faint glow, he swore he saw a handprint slowly appearing on the inside of the glass. The mirror's hunger was not gone. It was merely waiting. Silence settled over the room, heavy and suffocating. Ryan and Chloe huddled together, still trembling from the mirror's recent fury. The candle light flickered, casting long, dancing shadows across the walls, shadows that seemed to move on their own. Chloe's voice barely rose above a whisper. It's still hungry, isn't it? Ryan nodded, his eyes fixed on the dark, glassy surface of the mirror. The cracks no longer glowed, but he could feel it, an uncheckable, patient presence. A soft pulse emanated from it, like the heartbeat of a living creature. Suddenly, the reflection in the glass shifted. It was Chloe, or a version of her, smiling with black, empty eyes. She gasped, stepping back. That's not me. The mirrored Chloe raised a hand. From the glass, shadows stretched toward the real Chloe, tendrils of darkness curling around her feet. She screamed and tried to run, but the floor beneath her seemed to grip her like quicksand. Ryan grabbed her arm. We need to get out, now. The hallway beyond the room had changed again. Doors that weren't there before had appeared, their frames warped and uneven. Each door whispered promises and threats in the voices of the missing, Max and Emily, calling, pleading, laughing. Chloe struggled, finally breaking free of the dark tendrils. Go. I can hold it off a little. Ryan hesitated. I'm not leaving you. Chloe shook her head violently. You have to, or it will take both of us. With no time left, Ryan sprinted toward the farthest door. As he ran, the mirror pulsed violently. Reflections of him appeared within it, countless versions, some screaming, some laughing, all reaching outward as if to drag him back. He slammed the door open and stumbled into a narrow corridor. The walls closed in, the air thickening, but he pushed forward. Behind him, a low rumble echoed from the mirror room, followed by a scream that pierced the stone and lingered long after it ended. Ryan didn't dare look back. The house twisted and reshaped itself, corridors bending impossibly, stairs appearing where none existed. He ran for what felt like hours, each step bringing him closer to the exit, the front door he had entered through, and yet the hallway seemed endless. Finally, he saw it, a faint glow of street light beyond a warped doorway. Hope surged through him. He sprinted, arms outstretched, and then, in a flash, the world shifted. The corridor collapsed into darkness, and Ryan found himself standing in the middle of the mirror room again. The glass loomed before him, perfectly intact. His own reflection stared back, but its grin was wider than his, as glinting black and malicious. A whisper curled through the air, soft and deadly. All who enter must reflect, or be reflected. Ryan stumbled backward, heart hammering, realizing the truth. There was no escaping. The house, the mirror, the shadows, all had claimed him, and somewhere, in the depths of the glass, Emily and Max were waiting, their forms trapped forever, whispering to the next victims. The house remembers. The mirror hungers, and it always gets its reflection. The lights flickered once, twice, and then went out. Outside, the abandoned house stood silent under the moonlight. The street was empty, the fog curling lazily across the pavement. Only the faintest shimmer of glass could be seen through the boarded windows, a warning to anyone who dared enter on a Halloween night. Morning never came, at least, not for Ryan. The house refused to release him. Every corridor he ran through twisted and stretched impossibly, as if the walls themselves were alive. Dust and shadows clung to his clothes, and the faint smell of decay filled the air. He realized the house wasn't just a building, it was a predator. He reached what looked like the front door. Sunlight spilled through the cracks in the boards. Relief surged. With a desperate push, he yanked at the door. It didn't budge, though it groaned, then slammed back as if mocking him. From the shadows came a faint whisper, chilling and articulate. You can leave, if you become what you fear. Ryan froze. The voice wasn't outside the door. It wasn't inside the room. It was in his head. Each step he took toward the exit made the whisper louder. repeating over and over, mixing with dozens of other voices: Emily, Max, Chloe, some pleading, some screaming. He turned down a hallway that hadn't been there moments ago. The walls were covered with mirrors, each reflecting not just his image, but alternate versions of himself. Some versions were smiling, some screaming, some dead. Their eyes followed him, and when he blinked, one mirror's reflection reached out, fingers pressing against the glass as if trying to escape. Panic clawed at his chest. He smashed one mirror with a metal pipe lying on the floor. The glass exploded into shards, but from the cracks, a faint, shadowy hand slipped through and tried to grab him. Ryan stumbled back. The shards hung in midair, defying gravity, twisting toward the other mirrors. He understood then the mirror wasn't just a trap. It was aware, a living entity feeding on fear, curiosity, and desire. It could manipulate space, warp time, and bend reality to draw victims closer. And it wasn't satisfied with one soul at a time. Footsteps echoed behind him. Chloe, he spun around, but only darkness awaited. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw her or her reflection smiling in a mirror he hadn't noticed before. "You can't run from me," it whispered. "We all belong here." In the reflections, Ryan ran, sliding down warped staircases, vaulting over walls that appeared and disappeared. Every attempt to find the front door only led him deeper into the house. The whispers grew louder, forming a chorus of voices that were both familiar and alien. Finally, he reached a massive mirror at the end of a corridor. It was larger than anything he had seen, its surface swirling like liquid, black and inviting. The whispers coalesced into one clear voice, Emily's voice, soft but insistent. "Step in, and it will stop. Step in, and it will leave the living behind." Ryan froze. He realized the truth. The mirror demanded a choice. To escape, he would have to sacrifice himself or risk becoming part of its endless collection of reflections. Behind him, the house groaned, walls twisting tighter, the shadows leaning in. The whispers multiplied, surrounding him completely, with no other way out. Ryan's hand trembled as he reached for the surface. The black liquid glass rippled under his touch. He looked into it, and for the first time, he saw not just the mirror's hunger but the countless souls trapped inside. Silent, screaming, and waiting, he had seconds to choose. The mirror pulsed like a heartbeat, its black surface rippling with every breath Ryan took. The air was heavy, humming with unseen energy. Each reflection that shimmered inside the glass moved in rhythm with his fear. Hundreds of versions of himself, each frozen in some stage of panic, despair, or surrender. He heard Emily's voice again. "It won't stop, Ryan. Not unless you give it what it wants." He turned, scanning the endless corridor, but there was no one there. Only flickering candles that burned with blue flames. Their light bent and stretched toward the mirror, as though feeding it. Ryan took a cautious step forward. "What does it want?" he whispered. This time, it wasn't Emily who answered. "It wants choice." The voice was low, ancient, echoing through the bones of the house itself. Every wall vibrated with it. The floorboards cracked beneath his feet. In the mirror, the reflection closest to him, another Ryan, lifted its hand and pointed toward him. Blood trickled from its nose, then its eyes, then its mouth. "Choose, or I will." Ryan backed away, his breath shallow. "No, I won't be part of this." The mirror rippled violently. Shards of glass began to tear themselves free from the walls, hovering in the air like razor blades. Within each shard, a memory flickered. Moments from his past, his sister's laugh, his mother's funeral, Chloe's terrified face before she vanished. The mirror was showing him everything it had taken. Emily's voice returned, quieter now, filled with sorrow. "If you step in willingly, it will end. The house will sleep again." Ryan clenched his fists. "And if I don't?" The mirror hissed. The walls bled darkness. Dozens of shadowed arms burst from the surface, grasping at him. He swung the metal pipe wildly, smashing at the hands, but every blow only multiplied them. One grabbed his wrist, another his throat. The mirror's voice roared, "Reflect or be reflected." Ryan's knees buckled as the shadows dragged him closer. He stared into the churning black glass, and saw something that stopped his heart. In the reflection, Emily stood behind him. She wasn't screaming. She wasn't afraid. She was smiling. Her lips moved, forming silent words. "It's okay." Tears welled in his eyes. The shadows pulled tighter, the air freezing around him. He dropped the pipe, his voice cracking. "If I go, it ends." The whisper came again. "Yes." Ryan took a breath so deep it hurt. The shadows loosened slightly, sensing surrender. He stepped forward, one foot in front of the other. The mirror's surface shimmered like water waiting to be disturbed. He reached out, and this time, the reflection didn't mimic him. It reached back. As his fingers touched the glass, the world erupted in light. A blinding, burning whiteness filled the room. Every trapped soul in the mirror screamed, not in pain, but in release. The glass began to crack from within, spider webbing outward, the black liquid draining away into nothing. Ryan's last thought was of Emily's voice, soft and fading. "You did it. You set us free." Then the mirror shattered completely. When the light faded, only silence remained. The air was still. The house no longer breathed. All that was left on the floor was a single shard of glass, smooth, harmless, and clear. In its surface, for a brief moment, a reflection appeared. Ryan, smiling faintly before fading forever. For the first time in what felt like centuries, the house was silent. No whispers, no flickering lights, no shifting corridors, just stillness, the kind of silence that follows a storm. The broken mirror lay in 1,000 fragments across the floor, glimmering faintly under the pale morning light that now spilled through shattered windows. The air felt clean, lighter somehow. Whatever curse had haunted this place seemed to have lifted. The walls, once pulsing and alive, were now cold and still. Among the shards, one piece of glass stood out, perfectly smooth, untouched by dust or cracks. It rested in the center of the floor, gleaming softly as though holding its own faint light. Hours passed before anyone entered the house again. At noon, a real estate agent named Lisa Crawford arrived, clutching a clipboard and muttering about restoration potential. She had no idea of the horrors that had unfolded inside. To her, it was just another abandoned property to be sold. She stepped over the broken boards and debris, wrinkling her nose at the smell of damp air. "Well," she sighed, "this one's going to need work." Her shoe brushed against the smooth shard. It slid slightly, catching her attention. She crouched and picked it up. It was beautiful, polished, almost inviting. When she turned it in her hand, her reflection appeared crystal clear. Her eyes, her lips, every detail perfectly sharp. For a second, she thought she saw something behind her in the reflection, a faint shadow, standing just over her shoulder. She blinked. It was gone. Smiling nervously, she slipped the shard into her coat pocket. "Might make a good keepsake," she murmured. But as she walked out of the house, the sunlight seemed to dim slightly. A faint whisper rose in the air, the kind of sound one might mistake for wine. Inside her pocket, the shard pulsed once, then again. Later, that night, as Lisa sat at her kitchen table, she took the shard out to examine it once more. Her reflection stared back at her. Only this time, her reflection smiled before she did. Her hand froze. Her breath caught. The faint sound of glass cracking echoed through the room, and from deep within the shard, a familiar whisper stirred, the same voice that had haunted the house for over a century. "All who enter must reflect." The shard shimmered, its light fading to black. Outside, the moon rose high over the silent town, and in one of the kitchen windows, a second reflection lingered, smiling long after Lisa turned away. The mirror had found a new home, and the hunger had begun again.